Well, this video is not going to be exactly like other videos on this channel, as in this video, I would like to respond directly to some of you guys and the overwhelming response to another video I put up recently following the Game 2 curb stomping of the defending NBA champions at the hands of the Minnesota Timberwolves. In that video, I call out the obvious, heinous, and reprehensible performance by Jamal Murray, not just in that specific Game 2, in which he was 3 of 18 from the field for 8 points, but his entire performance all postseason long to this point, where he is currently scoring 20 points per game on 22 shot attempts. And yet, there was an overwhelming sentiment that I am not being consistent, that I am not, quote, keeping that same energy about Nikola Jokic versus others that I am routinely critical of on this channel. While I likely shouldn't even be dignifying these pathetic comments with a response, as the vast majority are just LeBron jock-sniffing trolls, I would still like to speak as clearly as possible and highlight the reasons as to why these two things are not the same. And yes, it's true. I am highly critical of many all-time greats and highly decorated players on this channel, most notably LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and James Harden. 3 players who have all played for multiple teams throughout their NBA careers. In fact, 3+ teams for all 3 of these players, most of them designated super teams, in a never-ending quest to not only seek out as much help as they can possibly attain in order to steal as many cheap garbage rings as is possible, but also for each of them to simultaneously destroy the competitive balance of the league. Oh, and may I add, all 3 of these overrated losers are also insufferable D-bags who have been systematically overrating themselves for years.
You know, I'm not a system player. I am a system. You know what I mean? So, you know who I am. Y'all know who I am.
That one right there made me the greatest player of all time.
Other players who have caught criticism by me over the past year I have been making videos on this channel include Steph Curry, Joel Embiid, and Jason Tatum. Curry, who helped recruit Kevin Durant onto a team that won 73 games and choked its ass off in the NBA Finals in blowing a 3-1 lead the year prior, and who won one of his other rings with Hall of Famer Klay Thompson and probable other Hall of Famer Draymond Green. And his 4th and final ring paired those 3 with Andrew Wiggins, who was in fact an all-star that very season in 2022 when the Warriors won the title. Curry also is generally regarded as the best shooter ever, and mind you, in many circles is currently being presented as a top 10 player of all time. And that gets us to, of course, last year's fraud league MVP, Joel Embiid, who at 30 years old has never been out of the second round of the playoffs in his entire career in the weaker conference, and has played with Jimmy Butler, James Harden, and recent All-Star guard Tyrese Maxey, to name a few. While Jason Tatum has had damn near a top 2 roster in the NBA for what seems like 5 years now, while perpetrating multiple playoff choke jobs. Keep that same energy? For what? For what? Nikola Jokic has never played with a single All-Star for his entire career. The only 2 players he has ever played with that ever made an All-Star appearance at any stage of their entire careers are Paul Millsap and DeAndre Jordan. These other players I am routinely critical of have played with multiple Hall of Famers and all NBA caliber performers, and in many instances, multiple on the same team. Nikola Jokic's legacy will ultimately be harmed by this series outcome. He set forth on a quest this postseason to become a top 10 player ever with a title defense in these playoffs, and he ain't gonna get there. As a result, he is not going to be allowed to be part of those conversations at this time. That is what was at stake. But in terms of being critical, for what? He's playing against a team with 2 All-Stars this season, the Defensive Player of the Year and the 6th Man of the Year this season, all on one roster, while his second best player, Jamal Murray, who has never even been an All-Star once in his 8-year career, is currently averaging 12.5 points per game on 28% shooting from the field. Criticize him for what? He is still easily the best player in today's NBA. And yes, I was criticizing LeBron James long before I had this channel, and long before he had super teams. He first became fair game back in the mid-2000s because he was winning league MVPs with a comparable roster to Kobe Bryant, while Kobe was winning actual NBA titles against the very teams eliminating James from the playoffs. LeBron was already fraudulently seizing the title of best player in the world off of a substantially superior player in Bryant who was winning in the playoffs. And who fits that criteria today? Who is that guy? Who is Jokic being uplifted over today that is better? That player simply doesn't exist in this NBA. Nikola Jokic is by far the best regular season player, and he won a title last season with this substandard roster while becoming the first player ever to lead a postseason in points, rebounds, and assists. And that was while averaging a damn near 30-point-per-game triple-double for 4 rounds of the playoffs. From a historical standpoint, he will take a hit for his performance and his teams during this series. But the level of expectations due to his supporting cast simply isn't anywhere remotely close to the others I routinely destroy on this channel. Which gets me to my final point. I think many of you have misconstrued what this channel is. It is not a LeBron hate channel. It isn't a hate channel at all. My mission, my goal with this channel and my content is to expose and attack false narratives in the sports world, primarily my once beloved NBA. And one of the largest fake narratives in the history of all of sports is LeBron James, the fake GOAT, fraud king who is barely a top 10 player ever and has been bandied about as a top 2 guy for the better part of the last decade by the majority of liars in the mass media and by LeBron James himself. For that reason, he is a pervasive theme on this channel. But my intention is to go at all of the overrated players while also supporting and illuminating those underrated players who are getting too much hate for undue reasons. Most notably as it pertains to this channel, Kobe Bryant, an easy top 5 player ever at minimum, who is in recent times being slandered as barely top 10. And now Nikola Jokic is getting criticism for this series and this season that I simply do not believe matches the results. So to all of you out there who had something to say about my treatment of him, trust me, I am keeping that same energy, and I am going to continue to do so.